Nobody has ever tried to count them. And that's the strange part, because if you stood outside Louis Armstrong Stadium on a Tuesday morning in late August, you would see something that doesn't show up in a single official document anywhere. Thousands of people speaking Tagalog, wearing the Philippine flag draped over their shoulders like a cape, waiting for a 21-year-old from Quezon City to walk onto a tennis court. Alex Eala is not the top seed at this year's U.S. Open. She's not even a top 10 player. She's ranked 18th in the world, a career high she just set days before the tournament began. And yet something about her presence in New York this year feels different from anything tennis has dealt with before. And I want to spend the next 15 minutes explaining exactly why. Because once you see the shape of this story, you won't be able to unsee it. Start with the basics. Because if you're new to her story, you need the foundation before any of the rest of this makes sense. Eala turned pro as a teenager, trained for years at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, and spent most of her early 20s fighting through qualifying draws and wild cards just to get a taste of the big stages. Last year, she made history at this very tournament, becoming the first Filipino player ever to win a Grand Slam main draw match in the Open era when she knocked out Clara Tauson in the first round. This year, she arrives as a completely different athlete. She won her first WTA Tour title in Washington in early August. She reached the fourth round of Wimbledon by beating defending champion Iga Swiatek along the way, and she's projected to be seeded for the first time at a major, likely somewhere around 17th, which matters more than you'd think, because seeding doesn't just protect you from the best players early. It determines which courts you get placed on, and which courts you get placed on determines how many people can physically be in the room to watch you. That's the detail this whole story hinges on. So hold on to it. Now here's the part almost nobody in tennis media has bothered to connect. There's no tournament in the Philippines. Not one. No Grand Slam. No WTA 1000. Nothing remotely close to the level Eala competes at. Every single professional match she has ever played has happened somewhere that isn't home, which means an entire nation of tennis fans has never once had the chance to watch their biggest star play in front of them. Not really. Not in the way American fans get to watch American players or Spanish fans get to watch Spanish players. That absence creates a kind of pressure that builds up quietly for years and then releases itself wherever she happens to be scheduled. And this year, where she happens to be scheduled is New York City, home to one of the largest Filipino communities anywhere outside the Philippines itself. Before we go further, we need to deal with a number that gets thrown around constantly and means almost nothing on its own. The U.S. Open drew over 1 million admissions last year across its full run. People hear that figure and picture a single massive crowd, but that's not what it measures at all. It measures scanned tickets across roughly 3 weeks, day sessions and night sessions, counted separately, spread across more than a dozen courts ranging from outer courts that seat a few hundred people to Arthur Ashe Stadium, the largest tennis venue on the planet, holding around 23,000. Run 2 sessions a day across 3 weeks on the grounds with that much combined capacity, and 1 million total admissions stops being impressive and starts being simple arithmetic. The real insight is this. Fans of a specific player don't spread evenly across 3 weeks. They show up exactly when that player is scheduled, in exactly the court they've been assigned to, and then they leave. So the honest question was never how big is her fan base compared to 1 million random tickets. The honest question is how many people can she personally pull into one room on one afternoon when that room is finally big enough to hold them. So let's build a real answer to that, starting with the group closest to the stadium itself. The New York metropolitan area is home to one of the largest Filipino-American populations anywhere in the country, concentrated heavily in Queens, the same borough where the tournament takes place. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people for whom watching Eala play doesn't require a flight, a hotel room, or a vacation day. It requires a subway ride. Think about what that means for conversion. You don't need 10% of that community to show up to fill a mid-sized court. You barely need a couple percent. A population that large, sitting that close, with that much emotional investment in one athlete, is not a hypothetical audience. It's a standing reserve of demand that's been waiting years for a reason to show up in person. And it doesn't stop at the 5 boroughs. Widen the circle to New Jersey, to Pennsylvania, to Virginia, and you're adding hundreds of thousands more Filipino Americans within driving distance. People who don't need a plane ticket, just a decision about whether Saturday is worth the trip. That's the floor of the model. The part you could be almost certain about before you add a single behavioral assumption. But a floor built purely on population numbers is still a guess until you check it against something that actually happened. So let's check it. Rewind to January, the Australian Open, an early round match assigned to one of the smaller side courts. The kind of court tournaments hand to players they don't expect anyone to care about. Court 6 at Melbourne Park seats a few hundred people at most. No roof, minimal infrastructure. The sort of place matches go to be ignored. Except the line to get stretched back toward Rod Laver Arena, the primary stadium, a good 5-minute walk away. Every seat gone. People standing wherever they could find a gap. Philippine flags everywhere you looked, and noise loud enough that routine rallies were drawing reactions usually reserved for match points. She lost that match in 3 sets to a player ranked outside the top 90, and it still took a small security detail to get her off the grounds afterward. Now sit with that for a second, because Melbourne's Filipino community, while real, is a fraction of the size of New York's, and getting there requires a flight of well over a dozen hours for most of the diaspora. Smaller pool, harder travel, a losing performance, the smallest court on the property, and it still produced a line that stretched toward the biggest stadium on the grounds. If demand did that in Melbourne, what happens in New York, where the pool is several times larger, the travel is a train ride, and for the first time in her career the tournament is expected to actually give her a big room instead of a small one? That's the pivot point of this whole story. Because up until now, every crowd number ever attached to Eala's name has been measuring the wrong thing. Picture trying to measure how hard it's raining using a coffee cup left out on a porch. The cup fills up in a few minutes no matter how long the storm lasts. And if you only look at the cup, you'll conclude it barely rained at all. That's what every attendance figure tied to her has actually been capturing. Not the size of her audience, but the size of whatever tiny court she happened to be assigned. Schedulers see modest numbers from a 300-seat court and conclude, reasonably but wrongly, that demand is modest. Then they schedule her on another small court next time, and the numbers stay artificially low again, and the cycle repeats itself, tournament after tournament, continent after continent, because nobody stopped to ask whether the container itself was the problem. This year, that container finally changes. A seeded player at a major doesn't get placed on the outer courts by default. She gets access to the show courts, Louis Armstrong or Arthur Ashe, buildings that hold 14,000 and 23,000 people respectively. For the first time in her career, the room might actually be bigger than the demand instead of smaller, and we are about to find out in real numbers what her actual audience looks like when it isn't being artificially capped by a scheduling decision made months in advance. And there's a second multiplier stacked directly on top of that first one. This isn't a single tournament appearance. It's 3 distinct events packed into a 9-day window. Mixed doubles alongside Felix Auger-Aliassime, opening against a husband and wife pairing of Alina Svitolina and Gael Monfils, in a bracket that could eventually put her across the net from Aryna Sabalenka and Novak Djokovic, a matchup that would draw eyes on its own even without her involved. Then the stars of the Open exhibition against Iva Jovic on Arthur Ashe itself. Then the singles main draw beginning days later. That's not one opportunity to see her play. It's 3 separate tickets. 3 separate sessions, all inside the same short trip, which means a family driving in from New Jersey or taking a train down from upstate isn't weighing whether one match is worth the trouble. They're weighing whether an entire weekend built around watching her is worth it, and that's a much easier yes. Now layer in something that almost never gets mentioned in these conversations. The tournament's own fan week runs on free grounds admission for several days before the main draw even begins, meaning anyone who shows up to watch her mixed doubles matches or practice sessions during that stretch walks through the gate without buying a ticket at all. No skin tied to her name, no line item anywhere, nothing that shows up when someone eventually tries to calculate her commercial value to this event. The most devoted layer of her audience, the ones willing to show up on a random Tuesday morning just to watch a practice session, is also the layer that leaves no trace whatsoever in the official record. And that gap, as large as it is, still isn't the biggest blind spot in this entire picture, because there's an audience many times larger than anything physically present at Flushing Meadows, and it has never been counted by anyone. New York runs 12 hours behind Manila during this tournament. A night session under the lights at Arthur Ashe, the marquee slot in the sport, lands at roughly 8 in the morning the next day back home, exactly when people are boarding jeepneys, opening shop doors, dropping their kids off before work. And they watch anyway, standing, phone propped against something, stealing a set before their day starts. There are well over 100 million people in the Philippines, plus millions more scattered across a global diaspora, and not one of them shows up in a turnstile count, a ticketing report, or a broadcast rights valuation tied specifically to her. Every one of the million bodies that passed through the gates last year got scanned and converted into a line in a financial report, because that's what the sport was built to measure: physical attendance in the country hosting the event. It was never built to measure a crowd that watches from 8,000 miles away before sunrise. So here's where this actually lands. Somewhere between the Filipino community, packed into the New York metro area, the driving distance population across 3 neighboring states, the calibration evidence from a losing first-round match in Melbourne that still produced a security escort, and the fact that she's finally being placed in rooms large enough to hold real demand instead of the smallest available courtside slot, a single featured session late in this tournament, a second week singles match, or a night mixed doubles appearance on Ash, could realistically pull somewhere in the range of 9 to 14,000 people into that building specifically because of her, not counting the free fan week crowds that never touch a ticketing system, and not counting the audience watching from a phone screen on the other side of the planet before their workday even starts. That's the number. That's the reasoning behind it, and you're welcome to disagree with any piece of it, because I genuinely like to know where you think the math breaks down. But step back from the specific figure for a second and look at what it actually represents, because I think this is a bigger story than one tennis player. Right now, the entire commercial machinery of professional tennis is built to value players based on ticket scans and broadcast numbers inside the country hosting the event, and that system works fine for almost everyone, because almost every player's biggest audience lives somewhere near the tournaments they play. It completely breaks down for a player like Eala, whose home country has no tournament at all, whose most devoted fans are either standing in a free admission line at dawn or watching from a jeepney 8 time zones away, invisible to every metric the sport currently tracks. Whoever in tennis eventually builds the tools to actually count that kind of audience is going to discover that her commercial value has been badly underestimated for years, not because the demand wasn't there, but because nobody built an instrument capable of seeing it. Her seeding gets confirmed any day now. Her mixed doubles run starts almost immediately, and once that draw is finalized, the real test of everything laid out here begins. If you want to see how this plays out match by match, stick around, because the next few weeks are going to tell us a lot more than any spreadsheet could.